welcome you watching Blueprint Explosive Exclusive with me, Meghna Deka. Well, let's tell you how after pinning Chinese soldiers at the LAC, India is now all set to display its military might and preparedness to tame the dragon breathing fire. In fact, in a massive development, India is likely to test fire Agni V intercontinental ballistic missile in Odisha. In fact, the airmen have been issued a notice for the next 2 days. Agni V, remember, is India's long-range surface-to-surface ballistic missile. It's capable of hitting a target 5,000 kilometers away from pinpoint accuracy. Well, the development comes amidst the reported movement of a Chinese research vessel in the Indian Ocean region. Of course, this is very important for us to understand what really is this intercontinental missile called Agni V, which is the latest, which is going to be part of India's arsenal. Well, let's get you a quick look. It is a nuclear-capable intercontinental ballistic missile. It is being developed by DRDO. It is indigenously developed. Very important for us to point out. The range is roughly 5,000 to 5,500 kilometers with pinpoint accuracy. It is also enhancing the nuclear deterrence against China, which is why it's going to be very significant. When it comes to navigation, it is inertial navigation system, RLG. In fact, the mobility, if you look at that specifically, it is specifically tailored for road mobility, which is going to be critical in ensuring the transportation as well. And that is going to be significant as well because, well, with China roaring at the corner, at our borders, it's important to be prepared. Now, India has, of course, increased surveillance in the area in view of the recent activities by the Chinese side along the LAC. The Air Force will also carry out a pre-planned two-day exercise. It's already carrying that out in the northeast, involving almost all the frontline fighter jets and other military assets which have been deployed in the region. So what are these assets which are now undergoing exercises in the eastern sector? Take a look at this. Rafale. Remember, today the last cache of the Rafales were also delivered by France and they have arrived, which makes India's arsenal complete with this fighter jet. There's, of course, Sukhois, which are going to be part of the military exercises. This exercise, remember, is currently happening today and it continues tomorrow as well. Also, Apache attack helicopters, very significant at high altitudes, are going to be there as well. Unmanned aerial vehicle drones. Now, these are very critical as well to ensure better surveillance in areas like the LAC, which, remember, at times is very hard to monitor physically as well. So India is armed with this arsenal of nuclear weapons. Now, here are some of the variants of the Agni and their capabilities. Let me go across to our colleague Priya Behel, who is going to take you through the different variants.
In front of you, we have 5 Agni missiles. We'll take you through one by one their capabilities. The first one has a range of 700 kilometers. This is the Agni 1 that has been developed by India. It is a short-range ballistic missile. As I've already explained you earlier, it has a limited range. This is already operational. The next is Agni 2. This has a range of 2,000 plus kilometers. This is also operational right now. This comes in the medium-range ballistic missile, and as I said, it is operational. But one thing also that needs to be kept in mind is their declared capacities are usually below their actual capacities. Now, this one is a 3,000 kilometer plus, which is Agni 3. This is also ready and functional. It is an intermediate range ballistic missile. But here is where we cross over to the more important category, which is Agni 4 and Agni 5. Now, remember, these two are both still in the making. Agni 4 has a range of 3,500 plus kilometers. It comes in intermediate range ballistic missile, but it is very close to the next one, which has a range of 5,000 plus kilometers. And in case you're wondering, what does it mean? It means that once we cross the 5,000 plus kilometers range, it comes under intercontinental ballistic missile category, and it can be used to target places within China across the border.
Well, let me go across to Colonel Dinny, who is joining us, our defense expert. Now, Colonel Saab, it's important for us to point out that this military exercise, which is currently happening at the eastern sector by the Indian Air Force, is not something which is planned after China's aggression on the 9th of December. It has been planned for quite some time now. Goes to show that India is well prepared. These are exercises which were already planned. If you look at the arsenal that we have managed to collect, what would you say?
Oh, absolutely. All these exercises are pre-planned, and these are based on our threat perceptions, like how do we perceive the threat which is there against India. And accordingly, our exercises, our training, our philosophy, our doctrines, everything is made into to cater to that particular need. And that is why, even though this particular incident happened, and it was, I think the exercise has come at a very right time, in which not only the validation of whatever exercise aims the Air Force would have, but definitely it also sends a message across that here is an armed forces which are up and running, and it's absolutely ready. And regarding the testing of the missiles also, I think we must understand that to be a viable threat, we need to have two things. One is political intent, of course, and second is the capability. Now, political intent can change overnight, and it depends upon personalities. But to develop capability, it requires a lot of time, and that is why all these ICBMs and such like weapons which come into being, it gives us a credible deterrence against whatever misadventure, if at all, our adversaries are planning. So therefore, even this was quite clearly it has emerged in the Ukraine-Russia war, in which if Ukraine had this kind of deterrence, I don't think Russia would have done what it has done there. So therefore, all in all, I think what the Indian Armed Forces collectively, jointly are doing is to show our capability so that there is adequate deterrence for our adversaries not to get into any kind of misadventures. Minor skirmishes along the line of actual control will continue. Those things will happen, but that will not. The aim is not to escalate that into a full-scale war.
But Colonel Dinny, it's important for us to understand. Now, this is the eastern sector that we are specifically discussing here, which is very different from the other borders of India. What are the specifications which are required to constantly surveil and ensure readiness at the LAC? LAC, which is very hard to reach, very different from the LOC, especially when it comes to the weather conditions, the hilly terrain, and of course the thick forest in some of the areas, to ensure, for example, this is the first time that you have an all-weather tunnel which is being created to ensure that there is no cutoff of supplies, and that tunnel is not yet ready. The Sela Pass will only be ready, I believe, in January sometime. So how is the eastern sector and the requirements at the eastern sector at the LAC different?
See, absolutely. Every terrain and every sector has its own peculiarities. Now, what is happening, what we see here is completely different from what happens in the Ladakh sector. Absolutely. And what happens in the Ladakh sector is completely different from what happens in the western border too, that is with our Pakistan border. So therefore, each sector has its own peculiarities, its own challenges, and therefore our armed forces are such professional armed forces that they adapt themselves to that particular sector, what is the requirement. And a force like Air Force, Indian Air Force, what I know is that they are so professional that they can adapt to each sector within a matter of hours. Like, for example, if there are strike aircraft, they can carry out tasks in eastern Arunachal Pradesh, and then they can carry out operations in Ladakh in the same kind of one operation itself. So that capability is there. But here, coming to your question specifically, that how it is in this Arunachal Pradesh, and what are the difficulties? Of course, there is a difficulty of sustaining the troops along the line of actual control. Like you rightly mentioned, there are many roads which are still in the process of being developed. The tunnel is coming up, and of course surveillance also with the latest drones and UAVs and such like things. We have much more improved than what it used to be earlier. But definitely we have to do a lot of things. But what I would like to say is that the pace at which the Indian infrastructure development, which is happening all along the line of actual control, that is phenomenal. I mean, that is not something which we should not see lightly, and that is one of the reasons why I think Chinese are rattled.
Yeah, which is perhaps one of the reasons why the frustration of the Chinese are now showing in these repeated aggressive bids that they've been making. But of course, all credit to the troops on the ground who have managed to successfully thwart all these attempts. Thank you so much, Colonel Dinny, for explaining that to us. Well, with that, a short break. Don't go anywhere. We're returning in 2 minutes.